The night was cold, but the chill in Emily's bones had little to do with the weather. She stood before the glass doors of the Windsor Grand Hotel, her fingers clenched tight around the strap of her old leather purse. Her breath came in shallow bursts, her mind replaying Jacob's frail smile as she kissed his forehead goodbye just hours ago. "Mommy will be back soon," she had whispered, trying to hide the trembling in her voice. He was too weak to respond. His tiny hand barely gripped hers. Now, she was here. For him. Only for him. The doorman opened the door without a word. Emily stepped into the lobby, her heels clicking on marble as she walked toward the elevator. Every sound echoed like judgment. Her reflection in the elevator mirror startled her, lipstick too bright, dress tighter than anything she owned, and her curls swept to one side like some woman she didn't recognize. Rachel had helped her get ready, avoiding eye contact the whole time. "You don't have to do this, Em," she had said, her voice breaking. "I do," Emily replied, buttoning up her coat. "There's no other way. The hospital said if I don't pay by Friday, Jacob loses his spot. They'll move on to the next child on the list." Now, standing alone in a private suite on the top floor, Emily heard the soft sound of a door opening behind her. Daniel. He looked different in the dim lighting. Not the sharp, commanding CEO who barked instructions and left meetings before they ended. He wore no tie tonight. Just a black shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows, his expression unreadable. "So," he said, walking past her toward the minibar. "You came." Emily nodded, her voice caught somewhere between defiance and shame. "Yes." He poured a drink, not offering her one. "I thought you'd back out." "I don't break promises," she said. Daniel turned to face her, his eyes scanning her like a puzzle he couldn't quite solve. "Then let's get this over with." The word stabbed more than she expected. She was selling herself tonight, and he didn't even pretend to care. Emily followed him silently into the bedroom, her dignity folded into the hem of her borrowed dress. The next morning, light spilled across silk sheets and silence hung between them. Daniel stirred first, sitting up and reaching for his phone without looking at her. Emily, already awake, slipped out of bed and dressed quickly. Her back to him, she picked up the envelope he'd left on the desk. Thick. Heavy. "Is it enough?" he asked without turning. "Yes." Daniel stood and pulled on a robe. "Then we're done here." Emily didn't reply. She walked to the door, her heels in her hands, hair tousled from sleep and shame. Just before she left, she turned to look at him. "You don't know me," she said quietly. He met her eyes for the first time that morning. "I don't need to." She shut the door behind her, and something inside her cracked. At the hospital, the receptionist looked at her like a miracle had just walked in. You're paying the full amount," the woman stammered. "Yes," Emily whispered, sliding the envelope across the counter. The doctor came out moments later, shaking her hand with disbelief. "We'll prep Jacob for the transplant. This changes everything." Emily stood in the sterile hallway, clutching the receipt, her heart both full and hollow. She had bought her son another chance, but at what cost? Days turned into weeks. Emily kept her head down at work, avoiding Daniel's floor whenever possible. She pretended not to notice when her badge granted her access to higher-level meetings. Or when she started receiving compliments from upper management about her vision and her initiative. She knew it was him. He was elevating her silently, maybe out of guilt. Maybe not. But he never mentioned that night. Neither did she. Rachel cornered her during lunch one day. "You okay?" Emily nodded. "Jacob's getting stronger." "That's not what I asked." "I'm fine." Rachel sighed, frustrated. "You're not fine. You disappear for days, you barely eat, and when Daniel enters a room, you act like your soul leaves your body. Drop it, Rach. But even Rachel couldn't deny that something had changed. One afternoon, Emily was asked to present her urban renewal design to the board. She walked into the glass-paneled room, laptop in hand, dressed in a sharp navy suit. Daniel sat at the head of the table. Their eyes met. His held something unreadable: guilt, interest, regret. "Begin," he said, his voice cold but quieter than usual. Emily clicked through her slides, her voice confident, her passion unshaken by fear or shame. The room applauded when she was done. Even Daniel nodded once. As she turned to leave, he spoke. "Stay behind." She froze but nodded. When the room emptied, he stood. "You're good at what you do," he said. "Thank you." He took a step closer. "I misjudged you." Emily looked him in the eye. "You paid for one night. Not the right to judge me after." His jaw clenched. "I wasn't trying to." "Yes, you were. You saw a desperate woman and assumed the worst." "I was wrong," he said. Silence again. "I have a son," Emily said suddenly. Daniel blinked. "What?" "I didn't tell you before because I didn't want to lose my job. His name is Jacob. He has leukemia. He's the reason I did what I did. You saved his life, whether you meant to or not." Daniel looked stricken. "I didn't know," he said. "I know." She walked out, leaving him alone in the boardroom, frozen in place. That night, Daniel sat in his office long after everyone else had gone home. He stared at a photo on his desk, his parents on their wedding day. His father had left when Daniel was 10. The image mocked him now. He thought of Emily's son. Of her courage. Of her refusal to beg. And he realized something: she had more strength in her silence than he ever had in his. Money. The next day, Emily found flowers on her desk. No note. Just white lilies in a simple vase. She threw them in the trash. But the walls around her heart, they trembled. Emily leaned against the hospital wall, arms folded tight across her chest. The corridor smelled of antiseptic and worry. Just a few feet away, through a small window in the door, she watched Jacob sleep, his tiny chest rising and falling with slow, measured breaths. He looked better. Stronger. But every moment reminded her how fragile everything still was. She hadn't told him where the money had come from. How could she? He was only 8. He shouldn't have to carry that kind of truth. No one should. The nurse emerged from the room and offered a warm smile. "He's doing well, Ms. Walker. Responding faster than we expected. The transplant was a success." Emily nodded, her voice cracking. "Thank you. Truly." She turned to leave, knowing she had to get back to the office. Deadlines waited for no one. Not even mothers whose lives had been torn apart. Back at the firm, Emily stepped into the elevator and pressed the button for the top floor. Her stomach churned. She hadn't seen Daniel in over a week, not since she told him about Jacob. She half expected her keycard to stop working. But when the elevator chimed and the doors opened, she was still allowed in. The office buzzed with movement, chatter, and clacking keyboards. As she walked to her cubicle, colleagues nodded at her. Some smiled. A few seemed unusually respectful. Strange. Then she saw it, a handwritten note on her desk. "Emily. I'd like your input on the upcoming Lagos urban housing proposal. Let's meet in my office at noon. Daniel." No title. No signature. Just his name. She stared at the note for a moment, unsure how to feel. Part of her wanted to tear it up. Another part, the foolish part, fluttered with something dangerously close to anticipation. At noon, she knocked softly on Daniel's office door. His voice called out from inside. "Come in." She stepped inside. He stood by the window, the skyline of the city stretched out behind him like a painted canvas. He didn't look at her right away. "I wanted to talk to you," he said quietly. "But I figured a business meeting was the only thing you'd accept." Emily stayed silent. Daniel finally turned. His eyes were tired, softer than usual. "How's your son?" "He's healing," she said. "The doctors are optimistic." A small nod. "I'm glad." She waited, the air heavy between them. "I've thought a lot about what you said," he continued. "About what I assumed. About what I didn't know." "I didn't want your pity," Emily replied, her voice low. "I just wanted to keep my job. To give my son a future." "I know," he said. "That's why I respect you." That caught her off guard. "Respect me?" Daniel walked around his desk and sat down. "I've seen people do despicable things for money. You did something selfless, painful, and you never asked for more. That matters." She didn't know how to respond. He motioned to the chair across from him. "Please. Sit." She did. They reviewed the housing project, poring over blueprints and zoning challenges. As they talked, something shifted. The wall of formality softened. He laughed once, just once, at her dry sarcasm. She noticed how he listened now, really listened. By the time she left his office, her hands were filled with plans, and her heart was dangerously lighter than it had any right to be. Over the next few weeks, things changed. Daniel began requesting her presence in more high-level meetings. When board members challenged her ideas, he backed her up. Once, during a late design session, he even brought her coffee. No assistant. No grand gesture. Just him. 2 mugs. 1 table. Rachel noticed first. "You like him," she said, plopping into the chair beside Emily's desk. Emily nearly choked. "What?" Rachel smirked. "Come on. Don't play innocent. The man is orbiting you like a satellite. He's my boss." Rachel raised an eyebrow. "Doesn't mean he's not into you." Emily rolled her eyes. "That's ridiculous." But later that night, alone in her apartment, she caught herself smiling at the memory of Daniel's laughter. She hated how warm it made her feel. Michael entered the picture quietly. He'd always been the charming one, witty, smooth-talking, loyal. He was Daniel's best friend and business partner, but he moved through the office like a storm wrapped in silk. He introduced himself to Emily one afternoon during lunch. "So you're the woman who's making Daniel grumpier by the day," he said, sliding into the seat across from her. Emily blinked. "Excuse me?" Michael chuckled. "Relax. I'm joking. Kind of. I'm Michael. Co-founder. And I've heard a lot about you. All bad, I hope." "Only the best," he said, eyes twinkling. "He doesn't talk about anyone like he talks about you." She narrowed her gaze. "What do you want?" "Just to talk. Maybe be a friend." Despite herself, she smiled. "I don't trust smooth talkers." "I'll earn it," he said. "Eventually." "Only the best," he said, eyes twinkling. "He doesn't talk about anyone like he talks about you." She narrowed her gaze. "What do you want?" "Just to talk. Maybe be a friend." Despite herself, she smiled. "I don't trust smooth talkers." "I'll earn it," he said. Eventually. Michael became her unexpected support system. When work was rough, he'd send a meme or drop by her office with a fresh donut. He never pushed, never flirted. Just stayed. Jacob adored him. And Daniel noticed. One evening, after a long meeting, Daniel caught Emily in the elevator. "You and Michael are close," he said, voice neutral. She turned to him. "He's been kind. A pause. You deserve kind. The elevator dinged, and the doors opened. She stepped out. Daniel? He looked up. I never wanted your money, she said. I wanted time. With my son. With peace. I know, he said quietly. And I wish I'd seen. She didn't know how to respond. He motioned to the chair across from him. Please. Sit. She did. They reviewed the housing project, poring over blueprints and zoning challenges. As they talked, something shifted. The wall of formality softened. He laughed once, just once, at her dry sarcasm. She noticed how he listened now, really listened. By the time she left his office, her hands were filled with plans, and her heart was dangerously lighter than it had any right to be. Over the next few weeks, things changed. Daniel began requesting her presence in more high-level meetings. When board members challenged her ideas, he backed her up. Once, during a late design session, he even brought her coffee. No assistant. No grand gesture. Just him. 2 mugs. 1 table. Rachel noticed first. You like him, she said, plopping into the chair beside Emily's desk. Emily nearly choked. What? Rachel smirked. Come on. Don't play innocent. The man is orbiting you like a satellite. He's my boss. Rachel raised an eyebrow. Doesn't mean he's not into you. Emily rolled her eyes. That's ridiculous. But later that night, alone in her apartment, she caught herself smiling at the memory of Daniel's laughter. She hated how warm it made her feel. Michael entered the picture quietly. He'd always been the charming one, witty, smooth-talking, loyal. He was Daniel's best friend and business partner, but he moved through the office like a storm wrapped in silk. He introduced himself to Emily one afternoon during lunch. So you're the woman who's making Daniel grumpier by the day, he said, sliding into the seat across from her. Emily blinked. Excuse me? Michael chuckled. Relax. I'm joking. Kind of. I'm Michael. Co-founder. And I've heard a lot about you. All bad, I hope. Only the best, he said, eyes twinkling. He doesn't talk about anyone like he talks about you. She narrowed her gaze. What do you want? Just to talk. Maybe be a friend. Despite herself, she smiled. I don't trust smooth talkers. I'll earn it, he said. Eventually. Only the best, he said, eyes twinkling. He doesn't talk about anyone like he talks about you. She narrowed her gaze. What do you want? Just to talk. Maybe be a friend. Despite herself, she smiled. I don't trust smooth talkers. I'll earn it, he said. Eventually. Michael became her unexpected support system. When work was rough, he'd send a meme or drop by her office with a fresh donut. He never pushed, never flirted. Just stayed. Jacob adored him. And Daniel noticed. One evening, after a long meeting, Daniel caught Emily in the elevator. You and Michael are close, he said, voice neutral. She turned to him. He's been kind. A pause. You deserve kind. The elevator dinged, and the doors opened. She stepped out. Daniel? He looked up. I never wanted your money, she said. I wanted time. With my son. With peace. I know, he said quietly. And I wish I'd seen that. Sooner. One Friday, during a gala dinner for a company partnership, everything came crashing down. Emily arrived in a sleek navy gown. Heads turned. Cameras flashed. She didn't care. Daniel approached her with a gentle smile. You look beautiful. Thank you, she said. Claire appeared out of nowhere. Daniel's ex. Emily, is it? Claire asked, voice syrupy. I've heard so much about you. Secretary turned designer. Impressive. Emily blinked. I'm an architect. Claire's smile tightened. Right. That. Daniel stepped forward, but before he could intervene, Emily turned and walked out. The hallway outside was quieter. Cooler. She leaned against a pillar, breathing heavily. Daniel followed. Emily. Don't, she said. You let her humiliate me. In front of everyone. I didn't mean to. I don't belong in your world, Daniel. I never will. You do. Then prove it. But he didn't. He just stood there, fists clenched, too proud, too slow. Emily walked away. The next morning, she submitted her resignation. 2 weeks' notice. No explanation. Daniel called her. She didn't answer. He sent flowers. She didn't respond. He even showed up at the hospital to see Jacob, but she refused to let him in. Instead, she focused on Jacob's recovery. On work. On healing. And Michael? He stayed. Quietly. Respectfully. But something in his eyes had changed. It had been nearly a month since Emily walked away from Daniel. The office felt different now. Not just because she no longer worked there, but because her presence had left a ripple. People still spoke of her designs. Her courage. The way she carried herself like a woman who knew pain and stood tall anyway. Michael noticed the silence she left behind the most. He visited Emily often, sometimes bringing groceries, sometimes picking up Jacob's favorite snacks, and other times just sitting with her in the small, quiet living room. There was comfort in his presence. Not the sharp, electric tension she once felt with Daniel, but something gentler. Softer. Jacob adored him. Mom, he said one evening, snuggled in a blanket beside her, Uncle Mike makes the best pineapple smoothies. Emily smiled. I'll let him know. I wish he was my dad, Jacob added, without looking up. The words pierced her. The next day, Michael showed up with paint samples. Thinking of changing the living room color, he said casually. Emily laughed. You don't even live here. True, he said, leaning against the doorframe. But I like how it feels when I'm here. She paused, brush in hand. He walked closer, gently taking the brush from her. Emily. I know you're still healing. I'm not asking for anything. But I care about you. And I care about Jacob. That's not going to change. She looked up at him, eyes searching. I know. And that was all she could say. Not yet. Not now. Meanwhile, across the city, Daniel was unraveling. Claire had returned this time more persistent, more polished, more polished, more dangerous. With Emily gone, she saw an opening. They were spotted at a charity brunch. Then at a board dinner. Rumors swirled. Engagement buzz returned. But Daniel couldn't stop thinking about Emily. Her laugh. The way she challenged him. The way her presence silenced the noise in his head. He stared at the design she left behind, her final blueprint. It wasn't just lines and measurements. It was vision. Soul. A dream in ink. And he realized he had thrown it all away. Margaret, his mother, didn't help. She was never your equal, she said one morning over tea. Michael, on the other hand, is being clever. That woman is vulnerable. He sees it. Daniel clenched his jaw. You don't know her. I know women like her. They survive by attaching themselves to power. Now she's found another man to lean on. You were just the first stop. His hand tightened around the mug. You're wrong. She sipped her tea. You'll see. The following weekend, Daniel arrived at the hospital unannounced. He brought a model skyscraper Jacob had once said he liked. The boy lit up when he saw him. You came back. Jacob beamed. Daniel knelt beside the bed. I missed you, champ. Emily entered the room moments later, frozen in the doorway. Their eyes met. Why are you here? She asked, voice quiet. I needed to see him. You could have called. I wasn't sure you'd pick up. Silence. He stood. Emily. I miss you. Don't. I was wrong. About so many things. You think one model tower makes up for all of it? No. But it's a start. She stared at him for a long time. Then gently touched Jacob's shoulder. Say thank you to Mr. Daniel. Jacob did, excitedly showing him his drawing of a new building. Emily stepped into the hallway. Daniel followed. I'm not here to beg, he said. I wanted to be part of something real. You had that. You let it go. I was scared. You broke through everything I built to protect myself. I didn't know how to handle it. She didn't soften. Now I'm building something, too. But not for you. For my son. For myself. He nodded slowly. I understand. As he walked away, Emily leaned against the wall, every part of her trembling. That night, Michael came over. He didn't ask questions. He didn't press. They sat on the balcony, watching the stars. He came today, she said. Michael nodded. I figured. I don't know what I'm doing. You don't have to know. Just feel what's true. She turned to him. And what's true for you? He hesitated, then looked at her with quiet intensity. You're what's true for me. Her breath caught. Then Jacob called from inside, and the moment passed like a ripple on still water. A week later, Margaret invited Emily to lunch. To Emily's surprise, she accepted. The restaurant was elegant, sterile, and full of judgment. Margaret wasted no time. I hear you've been seeing Michael. Emily raised an eyebrow. Is this a date or an interrogation? Margaret smiled. Let's call it mutual understanding. I don't need your approval. You never had it. Emily set down her fork. Then why am I here? Because I want to make something clear. Daniel is marrying Claire. That's what the board wants. That's what his future demands. Emily's heart twisted. Margaret continued, voice calm. Whatever fantasy you had, let it go. Emily stood, her chair scraping back. You should be careful, Margaret. Because the son you think you own. He's slipping further away from you every day. And with that, she left. That night, she wept. Not because of Margaret. Not because of Daniel. But because of how much it still hurt. The sun beat down on the city like a warning. A dry wind swept across the skyline, rustling curtains in Emily's small apartment. Inside, she paced the living room floor, her phone clutched tightly in her hand. She had just ended a call with Jacob's doctor. The news was good, remarkably good. His condition was stabilizing. His immune system was responding well. Hope, once a flicker, now burned a little brighter. And yet, Emily's heart was heavy. The weight wasn't Jacob. It was Daniel. And Michael. And the truth she didn't want to admit, she was caught between two men who loved her in ways she couldn't define. Michael arrived that evening, arms full with dinner and a bag of groceries. Your fridge was starting to look like a science experiment, he teased. Emily smiled faintly. You didn't have to. I know, he said, gently brushing past her. But I wanted to. They sat at the table while Jacob played quietly on the floor, building a Lego tower with absolute focus. Michael's voice was warm, his presence steady. "I got an offer," he said suddenly. "To head up a new firm in Dubai." Emily's eyes widened. "You didn't tell me." "I wasn't sure I'd take it." "I'm still not." "Why not?" "It sounds amazing." Michael looked at her. "Because I'm not sure I want to leave you." The air grew still. Emily opened her mouth to respond, but Jacob called out. "Mama, look." She rose and crossed to him, heart pounding. Meanwhile, across town, Daniel stood in his office, looking down at a photograph. It was old. He and Michael at university. Carefree. Loyal. The kind of bond that had survived scandals, failure, and family betrayal. Until now. Claire stood in the doorway. "You haven't told your mother about the cancelled engagement." "I'm not going through with it," Daniel said flatly. Claire approached. "Then what? You think she'll forgive you?" "The board?" "I don't care what they think." "Oh, you will," Claire said, her voice dropping. "Because they already think you've gone soft. You passed up the Port Harcourt project for a slum redesign. You're donating to children's hospitals instead of scaling." Daniel turned to her. "You sound disappointed." "I sound like someone who knows the cost of being sentimental." He stepped closer. "You're right. And I'm done paying for other people's expectations." Claire's expression hardened. "So this is it? This is me choosing something real for once." She laughed bitterly. "Then good luck. Because you're about to burn bridges you'll never rebuild." That night, Daniel drove to Emily's apartment. He didn't call. He just stood outside, staring up at the light in her window, hands in his pockets. Inside, Emily stared at the same window, frozen. She didn't need to look to know he was there. Something in her bones told her. The next morning, her world shifted. It started with a call from the police. A fire. At the firm's new warehouse construction site. No one hurt, but the project delayed indefinitely. Suspicious. Emily found herself at the site with Daniel, both of them in hard hats, the air thick with smoke and disbelief. It was arson, the inspector said. Deliberate. Professional. Daniel's jaw clenched. Victor. Emily looked at him. Victor? Victor Adesanya. My father's old rival. He's been after my company ever since I cut ties with the old guard. He would sabotage your build just to make a point. He'd destroy me to make one. She shook her head. That's insane. That's business, Daniel replied grimly. And just like that, she saw the world he came from, ruthless, toxic, laced with landmines. And she realized something, her presence in his life didn't just complicate things. It made her a target. Days later, she returned home to find her apartment door cracked open. Her stomach dropped. She rushed in, Jacob was safe. The nanny had taken him to the park. But her desk was ransacked. Her project files, drawings, and renderings, all gone. She dropped to her knees, shaking. Michael arrived minutes later. They went through everything, she whispered. He examined the mess, his face unreadable. Then he turned to her. This is getting dangerous, Emily. You need protection. I don't want a bodyguard. Then let me take you away. Just for a while. I can have you on a plane in 2 hours. She looked up at him, eyes brimming. Michael. You don't have to say anything, he said. Just choose safety. But her mind was already racing. Not about safety. About Daniel. Because deep down, she knew who would burn the world to protect her. That night, Daniel drove her and Jacob to a private villa just outside town. Secluded. Guarded. Quiet. This isn't charity, he said as they unpacked. This is necessity. Emily didn't argue. Because for the first time, she didn't feel like a charity case. She felt seen. Jacob ran around the compound, thrilled. And that night, for the first time in a long time, they sat together, Daniel, Emily, and Jacob, eating spaghetti and laughing about a silly movie. It felt like a family. It felt like home. Until Margaret arrived. Unannounced. Uninvited. Unapologetic. This is outrageous, she said, storming into the living room. You've taken a woman and her child into hiding as if you're some hero. I am protecting them, Daniel said. You're ruining your future. No. I'm choosing it. She turned to Emily. Do you think this makes you special? You'll never belong in our world. I don't want your world, Emily said calmly. I'm building mine. The final blow came a week later. Jacob was kidnapped. It happened in minutes, during a grocery run with the nanny. 2 masked men. A black van. No traces. Emily collapsed when she got the call. Daniel held her, silent, trembling with rage. He made one call. Find him, he said to his private investigator. Use everything. Spare nothing. Within hours, they had a location. An abandoned compound outside the city. Daniel didn't wait for the police. He went in himself. He fought like a man possessed. And when he carried Jacob out, dirty, crying, but alive, Emily dropped to her knees in gratitude. He knelt beside her, holding them both. And something in her shattered. Something rebuilt itself. Something opened. Later that night, as Jacob slept between them, Emily whispered, "You saved him." Daniel didn't respond. But his arms around her tightened. Emily sat at Jacob's bedside, her fingers gently combing through his curls. He was safe. He was asleep. But her heart still raced as if danger lurked just outside the villa gates. Daniel stood silently in the doorway, watching her. You didn't have to do what you did, she said, without turning. He stepped closer. Yes, I did. She looked at him. You could have been killed. He sat down beside her. So could he. There was nothing romantic in his voice. No grand declarations. Just truth. Raw and quiet and absolute. Emily reached for his hand. He didn't hesitate. They sat that way for a long time. The next few days were quiet. Healing. Daniel had security doubled. Margaret didn't return. Claire tried to call, he didn't answer. Emily found herself walking through the villa garden each morning, sometimes with Jacob, sometimes alone. On the 4th morning, Daniel joined her. You've changed, she said softly. He raised an eyebrow. For better or worse? For deeper. He smiled faintly. You changed me. They walked in silence. Then he stopped. I want you to stay. Emily looked at him, unsure if she heard right. Not just for Jacob, Daniel continued. Not just because it's safer. But because I don't want to go another day pretending I don't need you. She blinked. Daniel. I don't care about the board. Or my reputation. Or my mother's expectations. I care about you. Her heart beat so loudly she was afraid he could hear it. I'm not asking you to forgive everything, he added. I'm just asking you to let me try. She said nothing. But she didn't walk away. That evening, she called Michael. I needed to tell you in person, she said as they sat on a bench near a quiet pond. Michael already knew. You chose him, he said, no bitterness in his voice. Emily nodded, ashamed. I never wanted to hurt you. You didn't, he said. You just reminded me what real love looks like. She looked at him with tears in her eyes. You deserve someone who chooses you first. Michael stood. Then promise me something. Anything. When he forgets, because he will, remind him of what it cost to earn your love. She nodded, her heart breaking all over again. He kissed her forehead. And then he walked away. A week later, Daniel proposed. It wasn't a grand event. No fireworks. No photographers. Just him, Emily, and Jacob, sitting on the grass under the stars. He handed her a small velvet box. Inside was a simple gold ring. I never thought I'd have a family, Daniel said. But now that I do, I'll spend every day protecting it. Emily's eyes filled. She didn't say yes. She kissed him. And that was more than enough. The wedding was small. Beautiful. Intimate. Rachel cried the most. Margaret attended. She didn't speak. But she nodded once during the vows. That was all Emily needed. Jacob walked them down the aisle. It was perfect. Not because it was flawless, but because it was fought for. 1 month after the wedding, Emily launched the Michael Foundation, a nonprofit for children with terminal illness. Funded by Daniel's company. Inspired by Michael's quiet sacrifice. A portrait of Michael hung in the lobby. Smiling. Proud. Remembered. Emily stood on the balcony of her new home, the sun setting behind her. Jacob laughed in the yard. Daniel stepped beside her, wrapping an arm around her waist. We made it, he said. She nodded. We did. And for the first time in years, she felt it. Peace. Not the kind that comes from silence. But the kind that comes after the storm. The days following the wedding felt like stolen time. Emily moved through the villa like a woman waking from a long nightmare. The sunlight was softer, food tasted richer, and Jacob's laughter returned with more frequency than tears. Her world, once broken, now hummed with quiet, fragile joy. But even in paradise, shadows lingered. And sometimes, they crept in unnoticed. Daniel returned from a board meeting late one evening, his face tight. Emily noticed instantly. What happened? He poured a glass of wine but didn't drink it. Victor. She stiffened. He's been pressuring our overseas partners. Threats. Bribes. Some are pulling out. Emily sat down. Why now? Because he wants to hurt me where it bleeds, my name. My company. And you think he'll stop with business? No, Daniel said flatly. He knows the only real vulnerability I have, is you. Despite the threat, they tried to live normally. Emily busied herself with the Michael Foundation, launching mentorship programs, securing funding, meeting with hospitals. It was exhausting but healing. One morning, during a board planning session at the foundation's headquarters, she found a white envelope slipped beneath her office door. Inside was a single photograph. A grainy image of Jacob. At school. Her breath stopped. On the back, 2 words were scribbled in red ink. Stay silent. Daniel's fury was instant. He reinforced the security detail. Reassigned staff. Cancelled all public events. But Emily, though shaken, did not break. I won't let fear raise my son, she said. Daniel stared at her with a mixture of pride and heartbreak. You're braver than I'll ever be. No, she whispered, reaching for his hand. I'm just a mother with too much to lose. At the same time, Daniel's world began to shift again. The board was growing restless. Investors wanted stability. Claire returned, this time with leverage. A leaked email thread. Fabricated, but convincing, suggesting Daniel embezzled funds for Emily's foundation. The media ran wild. From billionaire to benefactor's puppet, the headlines screamed. Emily's phone buzzed non-stop. Donors paused contributions. Sponsors reconsidered. Rachel cried when she saw the story. "They're going to tear you apart," she whispered. Emily simply nodded. "Let them try." One morning, Michael's sister arrived unannounced at the foundation. She brought a letter. From Michael. Dated 2 months before his death. Emily read it alone, in the quiet of her office. "If you're reading this, I'm gone. And I hope you're happy. Not the kind of happy you perform, but the kind that spills from your soul when you laugh without guilt. I want you to live fiercely, Em. To love like you were never hurt. I didn't die to be mourned, I died to make room for your wings." She sobbed until the sun went down. That night, Daniel found her sitting on the balcony, the letter beside her. He didn't speak. He just sat. And listened. After a long silence, Emily whispered, "I loved him too, you know." Daniel nodded. "I know. But not like you." He turned to her slowly. "I was angry at you," she said. "For not being him. For not being safe. For being the one I actually wanted." His eyes stung. "I deserved your anger." She touched his face. "But now. I just want peace. With you." In the weeks that followed, they fought hard, for the foundation, for the company, for their names. Emily held a press conference. She told the truth. About her son. About the night with Daniel. About the price of survival. And when she was done, she looked straight at the cameras. "I am not ashamed," she said. "Because when the world shut every door, I broke one open, for my child. For myself. And for every woman who was told she had to choose between dignity and survival." The applause came slow, then loud. By the end of the month, the foundation was back in full swing. The company survived the smear campaign. Victor? Gone. Vanished into exile after his offshore accounts were frozen, thanks to a quiet investigation sparked by Emily's anonymous tip. Daniel never asked if it was her. She never told him. One night, as they sat in the living room, Jacob asleep upstairs, Daniel took her hand. "Do you regret any of it?" he asked. Emily looked at him, her voice steady. "No. Because every scar brought me here." He kissed her gently. Then again. And again. And in the hush between those heartbeats, there was no past. Only the warmth of a future they had both bled to build. The foundation's gala night arrived under a sky laced with stars. It was the first major public event since the press storm. Security was tight, nerves higher. But Emily walked in with her head held high, Daniel at her side, and Jacob, tiny in his black suit, grinning between them. The media swarmed like bees around honey. Flashbulbs. Questions. But none of it shook her. She had walked through fire. This was just noise. Inside the hall, the atmosphere shifted. Supporters stood. Applause echoed. People she hadn't met before whispered her name with reverence. Emily took the stage near the end of the program. Her speech wasn't written down. She didn't need it. "I'm not here tonight because I'm fearless," she said. "I'm here because I've been afraid, and I chose to move anyway. I chose to fight. Not just for my son. Not just for justice. But for every woman who's ever been told to sit down, stay silent, and survive quietly." She paused. Looked at Daniel. Then at Jacob. "I chose to speak. And that changed everything." After the gala, as guests began to leave, Daniel pulled her aside. "Can we talk?" They stepped out into the garden, soft jazz floating from inside. He took her hands. "I've been thinking," he said. About what happens when the cameras are off. When the world moves on. She waited. I want more. Not just the big moments. I want the small ones. Burnt toast mornings. Midnight fevers. School recitals. I want us. Emily blinked. Daniel. Marry me again, he said softly. Not as a CEO. Not as a protector. Just as a man who finally knows what matters. Tears brimmed in her eyes. Yes, she whispered. But not all stories move in a straight line. 3 days later, Daniel collapsed in his office. Emily rushed to the hospital, heart in her throat. The diagnosis was swift: exhaustion, elevated blood pressure, and stress-induced arrhythmia. The doctor's warning was firm. If he doesn't slow down, he won't see Jacob's graduation. Emily sat beside him, clutching his hand as he slept. I didn't survive all this just to lose you, she whispered. When Daniel woke, she was waiting. I'm not asking, she said. You're stepping back. Taking 6 months off. No negotiations. Daniel opened his mouth. She raised an eyebrow. He chuckled. Yes, ma'am. They traveled. Not to Paris or Dubai. To quiet places. Places with trees, and lakes, and silence that wrapped around them like healing. Jacob learned to skip stones. Daniel learned to rest. Emily learned how to breathe without bracing for impact. One night, while Jacob slept in a hammock and cicadas chirped in the trees, Daniel looked at her. I wasted so much time afraid to feel. You feel plenty. She teased. He smiled. Only because you made it safe. Emily leaned into him. I didn't make it safe. I just stayed until it became safe. He touched her face. Thank you for staying. I wasn't going anywhere, she whispered. Back in the city, they returned to a life reimagined. Emily kept building the foundation, but with better boundaries. Daniel returned to the firm, but only part-time. And Jacob? He thrived. He laughed more. He dreamed bigger. He stopped asking why they lived with guards or why his mom cried at certain songs. He just lived. On the anniversary of the first transplant, they held a small ceremony at the children's ward. Emily spoke. Jacob helped unveil a wall of names, children whose lives had been touched by the foundation. At the bottom, etched in gold. For Michael. Who taught us how to love even in silence. The hospital ward buzzed with quiet life. Emily stood at the far end of the corridor, arms crossed, watching Jacob through the glass window as he showed another boy how to fold a paper airplane. His face was bright, his laughter filling the room like sunlight. It was checkup day. No alarms. Just routine. Yet, every trip back to that hospital pulled her into the past. Daniel joined her silently. He's strong, he said. He's everything, she whispered. Daniel placed a gentle hand on her back. So are you. Back at home, a letter waited on the kitchen counter. From Michael's lawyer. Emily opened it with care. Inside was a simple notice: Michael's estate had officially closed, and per his final wish, the Michael Foundation would be permanently tied to Jacob's name. From now on, the full legal title would be the Jacob Michael Foundation, for courage, care, and second chances. Emily's hand flew to her chest. Daniel took the paper from her, reading it slowly. And then, he smiled. That evening, they sat around the dining table. Jacob poked at his rice, clearly curious. Mama, why are you crying? Emily laughed through her tears. Because someone very special did something very kind in your name. Jacob tilted his head. Like what? Daniel answered gently, he made sure people will remember what you went through, and how you survived. Jacob blinked. Because of Mama. No, Emily said, reaching across the table. Because of all of us. Over the next few months, life returned to a gentle rhythm. Emily worked part-time from home, dedicating herself to designing community housing for women who had faced abandonment or hardship. Daniel's company backed the initiative under a new division, Homes with Hope. Their partnership, both personal and professional, drew attention. But this time, the spotlight felt different. It wasn't scandal or pity. It was respect. One Friday morning, Rachel burst into Emily's office, waving a magazine. "You made the cover," she squealed. "Not just you. All three of you." Emily blinked at the headline. "From ruin to royalty, how a mother, a CEO, and a brave boy redefined legacy." The photo showed them walking in a park, Emily holding Jacob's hand, Daniel pushing a picnic cart behind them. Natural. Unposed. Whole. But peace has a way of testing its keepers. One night, while tucking Jacob into bed, Emily found a drawing under his pillow. It showed 3 stick figures, Mama, Dad, and Jacob. But under each was a name. Under Daniel, it read, Dad. Under Jacob, his full name, Jacob Michael Benson. And under Emily, it read simply, Hero. Later that night, she showed Daniel the drawing. He studied it quietly. Then folded it, slipped it into his wallet. "We never told him to write that," Emily said. "We didn't need to," Daniel replied. "He knew who we were." The next day, Daniel made an announcement at the board meeting. He was stepping down permanently as CEO. He had built an empire. But now, he said, it was time to build something else, legacy, not profit. "I'm not leaving business," he said. "I'm just choosing a better one." Emily met him at the lobby afterward. "You're really doing this?" she asked. Daniel smiled. "I already did." "Are you scared?" "Terrified." "Good," she said. "That means you're about to grow." They spent more time at home. More time traveling. More time just being. On Jacob's 10th birthday, they invited every child from the transplant unit for a lakeside party. Emily stood at the edge of the water, watching the kids run wild, their laughter echoing into the sky. Daniel joined her, slipping an arm around her waist. "Do you still regret anything?" he asked. "No," she said. "Not anymore." And for once, she meant it. A light drizzle dusted the villa's windows. Emily sat curled on the sofa, sipping tea, wrapped in one of Daniel's soft sweaters. Outside, Jacob ran barefoot on the wet grass, chasing raindrops with a paper umbrella. His laugh drifted in like music. Daniel walked in, quietly setting a bouquet on the table beside her, white roses and small yellow sunflowers. "Rainflowers," he said softly. "The florist said they mean resilience and new beginnings." Emily smiled. "Fitting." He nodded, kneeling beside her. "I've been thinking about names." She raised an eyebrow. "For Jacob," he clarified. "For us." Emily set her cup down. "You want to adopt him, legally?" "I want to give him what I didn't have. A name that means something. A family that won't leave." Tears welled in her eyes. "You already gave him that. But now I want it on paper." The legal process moved swiftly. Jacob was thrilled. "So I get 2 names now?" "Yes," Emily explained, kissing his forehead. "One for Michael. And one for your father." Jacob beamed. "Cool." On the day of the court hearing, they dressed in navy blue. Matching. Intentional. When the judge asked if Jacob understood what was happening, he nodded proudly. "I'm becoming Jacob Michael Benson. Because that's my full story." The judge smiled. Approved. Daniel squeezed Emily's hand. He's ours now. He always was. Later that week, Emily received an unexpected call. Her old professor at the university. Your thesis on ethical housing has been shortlisted for National Redevelopment Awards, the voice said. They want to feature your work in Lagos, Abuja, and Cape Town. Emily froze. That was over a decade ago. Vision has no expiration date, the professor said. And neither does truth. She presented the proposal to the panel wearing a modest blue blazer and a quiet strength earned through fire. She spoke of mothers with nothing. Of children left behind. Of second chances. Of brick-by-brick compassion. When she stepped off the stage, Rachel hugged her so tightly she couldn't breathe. You didn't just survive, Rachel whispered. You transformed. At home, a celebration waited, balloons, candles, and Daniel's attempt at baking. The cake was lopsided. It was perfect. Jacob ran up holding a sketchbook. Look, Mama. On the page. A tall building with wide windows and a rooftop garden. Across the front. Emily's place, a safe home for supermoms. Emily knelt, hugging him tightly. You're the architect now. He laughed. I learned from the best. That night, Daniel and Emily lay under the stars in their backyard, hands entwined. Do you ever think about how it all started? She asked. All the time. What would you change? Only one thing, he whispered. I'd find you sooner. She turned to him. And I'd believe in you sooner. As they drifted to sleep, the night air warm and sweet, their story didn't feel like a happy ending. It felt like a beginning finally earned. The morning sun spilled across the bedroom floor like liquid gold. Emily stretched beneath the sheets, her body relaxed, her mind calm in a way she hadn't known in years. Daniel's side of the bed was empty, but the faint smell of coffee and warm plantain told her where he was. She found him in the kitchen, humming off-key while flipping breakfast. Jacob sat on the counter, kicking his legs, eyes wide as his father narrated the great pancake flip of '09. Emily leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, just watching. She didn't need grandeur. This sacred ordinariness, was the life she'd bled for. And she wouldn't trade it for anything. Later that day, they drove out to a plot of land Daniel had quietly purchased months ago. A hilltop overlooking a small valley. Quiet. Untouched. I want to build here, Daniel said. Emily turned to him. Build what? A legacy. He handed her a rolled blueprint. Her own design. Emily's breath caught in her throat. You kept this? I framed it. She unrolled it, low-cost homes clustered around gardens, a community center at the heart, play spaces, education wings. You called it, the sanctuary. He nodded. We'll start construction in the fall. And it'll be part of the foundation's permanent outreach arm. Emily stared at the land, wind dancing through her hair. For a moment, all the pain, the battles, the shame, it all made sense. Months passed. The groundbreaking made national news. Daniel spoke with humility. Emily spoke with fire. Jacob cut the ribbon with a giant pair of golden scissors and said, "This is for people like my mom, who never gave up on me." Crowds cheered. But Daniel saw only Emily. That night, a gala was held in their honor. Margaret, elegant and quiet, pulled Emily aside after the speeches. I was wrong about you, she said, eyes glistening. Emily didn't respond. I thought strength came from distance, Margaret continued. But you showed me it comes from love. Emily took her hand, gently. Thank you. They embraced. And for the first time, it felt real. The final surprise came weeks later. A letter. From the office of the governor. Emily had been selected to serve as chair of the State Council for Humanitarian Development. She read it aloud to Daniel and Jacob, her voice trembling. Daniel stood slowly. "You deserve this." Jacob tackled her with a hug. "Madam Governor Mommy." They all laughed. And cried. Years passed. The sanctuary became a city symbol. Emily's face graced billboards, not for beauty, but for impact. Daniel taught entrepreneurship workshops in the same neighborhoods he once ignored. Jacob, now a teenager, started designing homes of his own. He sketched one with a rooftop garden shaped like a heart. They framed it. On their 10th anniversary, they renewed their vows in the garden behind the sanctuary. Rachel officiated. Michael's portrait stood beside the altar. Jacob gave the final toast. "To my parents," he said. "Who taught me that sometimes, love isn't loud. It's just there. Through every storm. Every sacrifice." Emily wept. Daniel held her hand. And as the lanterns floated into the sky above them, she whispered, "We did it." He smiled. "No," he said. "We're still doing it." Thanks for watching till the next story. Thank you. Please subscribe for more.